Some crazy stories are going around, and they're not from the US or any other Western country. These stories don't come from America, they're from China. People say that there was a coup and that the boss has been removed. China is very strict about anything that has to do with protest, so this is pretty amazing. There isn't much free speech or press there, so the fact that these stories are going around is pretty shocking. Here's the news. There was a big meeting in Bayu, which is where the Chinese Communist Party does most of its work. It seemed like rumors started going around about Xi Jinping, the boss of China, which is very wrong. There is talk that Xi might be locked up at home and that there is already a coup going on in the CCP. There is talk that different parts of the CCP, including the military, which Xi has been cleaning, have come together to get rid of him. Some people say that Xi is now just a figurehead, like a spokesman for the public face of China, and that real decisions are being made without him. The rumors say that Ding and Hu are the two most important people in charge of this change. People say that Hu Junha will become the new boss when Xi leaves the picture. It spread when it was said that there was talk about Xi having a stroke and his health getting worse during the CPC Central Committee's third plenary session, which is usually a very boring meeting. You may have read some pretty crazy stories online lately. I think that different parts of the Chinese government are seeing this as a chance to work together and do something. Or maybe some important people in China are sick of one person making all the decisions. Xi Jinping is that person, and his rule has made things tough between China and the US, which is its biggest trade partner. People are talking about how Xi's name and picture used to be all over the front pages of newspapers. This is a big deal because they used to be everywhere. Also, his words and pictures are being taken down, especially from places in the country. This is interesting because China was full of quotes and signs about Xi Jinping in 2018, which made the country feel like it was back in the days of Chairman Mao. Seeing these pictures go away is definitely interesting. Also, yes, the People's Liberation Army does have a newspaper. It recently had a quote about making choices that are scientific, democratic, and law-abiding. Some people see this as a clear challenge to Xi Jinping's ability to make all the decisions, especially in the military. There are signs in the paper that there might be a change in power. Based on the news, it looks like Xi Jinping might be in for a slow takeover. With Xi's huge amount of power, it would take a long time for different parts of the government to work together to slowly get rid of his friends without making a mess. Probably, there is a plan to keep him out of the spotlight while making sure China still has a leader to speak for the country at foreign events and keep its image stable. Let's get right to the point. Do you believe these rumors? Let's do the thought experiment. If you don't believe these reports, but they do make me wonder why these kinds of stories keep coming up. Even bad things happen. They always teach us something, and they often show us greater truths. Think about this interesting idea. If these stories are true, it could be because some important people in China don't like the way the country is going right now. It's possible that they miss the good old days and are fed up with how things are now. It's also tempting to think that this could be about getting back at the people in charge for losing their jobs or settling old scores. After all, Xi Jinping has been very cruel, firing and even missing some high-level officials. For example, both Qin Gang, who used to be foreign minister, and General Li Shangfu, who used to be defense minister, had big problems. Qin Gang was fired, and Li Shangfu disappeared from public view for months before being kicked out of the Communist Party on charges of corruption. The fact that China can be so harsh when it comes to fighting crime is clear. Think about what would happen if Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin disappeared tomorrow, never to be seen again. That sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? That's kind of what's going on in China. It's not common for high-level government leaders to vanish without a trace. The government of Xi Jinping has been very tough on graft, going after anyone who is accused quickly, no matter what rank they hold. One example is Qin Gang, who went missing for a while before being charged with corruption. Qin Gang was Xi's longtime friend and former foreign minister. At first, the story said he was sick, but then it changed to say he was dishonest. This changing storyline points to a process where lies and half-truths often cover up the truth. In the same way, Li Shangfu, who used to be defense minister, disappeared from public view. These kinds of disappearances and purges are very harsh and are likely to make a lot of people in the government unhappy. But the truth is that China's politics are so complicated that we don't really know who supports whom. We have no idea how they work together, so we can only guess. What would be the best thing that could happen if these reports about a slow internal coup are true? In an ideal world, it would mean spreading power around. This would mean getting rid of the harsh rule of a single leader and going back to a system that might bring back the economic growth that helped so many people in the past. People in the West used to make a lot of money by doing business with China, and people in China also did well because they worked together. It worked out well for everyone. Imagine what would happen if we could go back to that. Everyday life and government choices in China are now based on the central party and, even worse, the whims of one person at the top. Something that is less controlled might happen if everything goes well. Think of Vietnam as an example. On paper, Vietnam is still communist and authoritarian, but the government has been relaxing its grip on the country and making peace with the West. In an ideal world, the tyrant would not be able to control the whole government. Without direct interference from the top, the troops and the courts could work without being controlled by the central government. The Communist Party of China would still exist, but it might be able to work better and be less controlled. People in the West might like and trust the government more if this happened. These changes could make a big difference, even if China stays an authoritarian power, as long as it stops meddling in Western matters and trying to force its way to the top. If China is nice for a while, the West might even change its mind about how it feels about Taiwan. Trade relations could improve if China behaves better on the world stage. The U.S. and its partners might also warm up to China again if it makes changes inside the country that make it look more trustworthy. This would speed up the recovery of China's economy. The truth is that China needs to trade with the rest of the world. The best trade partners are the world's most powerful economies and their friends. Even though there were disagreements about government decisions and violations of human rights during China's golden period, there was hope for its global partnerships. A lot of people, including people in the Chinese government, would like to go back to that good time, because it was when the economy was doing well, and ties with the U.S. were good. The best thing that could happen for China would be for its democracy to grow and thrive. On the other hand, decentralization might be a more realistic result. This means using the way the government is set up now to make the different parts more independent and answerable to each other. This method would add more checks and balances, which would make things more transparent and prevent the chaos and suffering that come with a violent overthrow. It's not possible that the CCP will fall and China won't become a democracy overnight. The most likely result is that the CCP will keep power and push for reforms to keep China afloat and keep its place as a global player.